Hey everybody, what's going on? Helmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I actually wanted to talk about Keystone masteries. As you all know, the Keystone system will be, or the mastery in rune system, I should say, will be changing shortly due to the new runes reforged system that will be getting instated by Riot. And Riot have basically said that while some masteries will be transferred over to the new system, not all will. In fact, the majority of the masteries that we know and love will be disappearing, and this includes Keystones. Now, that being said, Meddler has also talked about a few Keystones possibly sticking around, possibly as low as just one. So I thought it would be an interesting idea to look at the Keystones we currently have in the game and talk about which ones I think are likely to stick around or have a chance of sticking around, and which ones probably don't deserve to do so. We're going to go ahead and start with the Ferocity tree, starting with Warlord's Bloodlust, which I think is a very hard to balance Keystone. It's already been reworked a couple of times throughout the years. It was a nightmare when it first was released on Tryndamere and Yasuo, and then it was changed for other champions to benefit from it, but was still too strong, and then it was changed again to an energized effect, and yet it's still the go-to mastery for AD carries and other champions that need help in lane. And I feel like the biggest problem with the Keystone is that it's just too general, and lifesteal as a whole is just too good, especially in lane. Sustain is a huge deal in the early game, and giving champions a bunch of free healing is asking for trouble almost no matter how you try to balance it. It's either going to be completely unusable or too overused. And when combined with the Vampire Mastery that gives you free lifesteal and spell vamp, it ends up being a ton of sustain on champions and almost guarantees that you cannot poke down early game champions that should be weak in the early game like Kog'Maw and Twitch. So I think overall, Warlord's Bloodlust will be saying sayonara in the future when the runes reforged come out. Next up, we have Fervor of Battle. Now, I know this mastery has been a bit of a point of contention, but I feel like it's in a decent spot right now. It needs to be stacked, so it emphasizes extended trades, and if you back off, the Fervor stacks fall off, you have to rebuild them up, it only stacks on auto attacks. So I feel like it's a good idea for more damage-focused champions who want to stay in a fight for long periods of time and who generally rely on auto attacks. I would love for it to stack with ability, so that way champions who are more ability-focused could get some use out of it, but unfortunately that version of the ability was deemed too volatile, so I understand why it's not a thing. I think that Fervor of Battle should stick around is my gut instinct about it, but unfortunately I have no way of knowing. My gut says it should stay. I think it's balanceable, but we'll see in the future. It might not be beloved enough by the fan base to merit sticking around. Next up is Deathfire Touch, which I feel like you see less and less as time goes on, with most mages defaulting to Thunderlord's Decree over Deathfire Touch, and its main user, Jhin, has even stopped taking it because he no longer gets the insane AD scaling on it like he did before. The damage basically feels negligible is the biggest problem. I feel like even if I'm playing someone like Xerath, having Thunderlords is better because it'll give me more burst damage instead of just kind of applying a dot that doesn't do that much to me in the first place, or do much for me in the first place. So I feel like Deathfire Touch has an interesting play pattern, but ultimately just doesn't do enough and may not be balanceable if it does a high amount of damage. So I do feel like Deathfire Touch will be removed in the new Runes Reforged system. Moving on to the Cunning Tree, Storm Raider's Surge. I do feel like this is a weird one, and the only mastery that I'm unsure of. I think right now it is underused. And a lot of players have difficulty either figuring out a good place to use it, but I also feel like at the same time it has some merit. I think it's the one keystone that assassins will possibly want to take, especially if Thunderlord's Decree is removed. And I think that it has some interesting effects on the game, especially for champions like Nasus or Graves, who might favor the extended combat maneuverability as opposed to just raw damage. So I would like Storm Raider Surge to stay around, but at the same time, it's not used by very many champions. It doesn't feel universal enough for me. So it's questionable. I don't know if it'll stick around or not. My gut is leaning towards not, but I do think that some form of it might want to stick around. I do think that Riot might get some use out of this ability. Next up is Thunderlord's Decree. Everyone has some very mixed opinions on Thunderlord's Decree. It pretty much just generically gives everyone more damage because you just have to land 3 abilities or auto attacks. But at the same time, I do really like it because it is a 3-hit passive, and players like 3-hit passives, and it does make some mages combos feel better. If you're able to successfully land a Twisted Fate, Gold card, Wild card into another auto attack or something, and you get the burst of damage, it feels pretty good. Or if you're Syndra and you land a full combo and you get the Thunderlord's proc, it's pretty good. It helps assassins by giving them more damage to burst with, but at the same time, it's very, very generalist. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing to have, because pretty much anyone can take Thunderlord's Decree and feel at least okay about it. I don't think there's a single champion in the game that would take Thunderlords and dislike having it. So I would say I would like to see it if it sticks around, but in a reworked form, so maybe only working on abilities or auto attacks, so that way champions do have a way of saying, yes, I can spec into this and feel good about it, as opposed to just kind of taking it because why not, I want just more damage. Next up is Windspeaker's Blessing, which is basically the only keystone that enchanters even have. I know some champions like Karma are taking Thunderlord's Decree in the bot lane for more damage, but especially if you're playing someone like Soraka, the only keystone available to you that you can make any use of whatsoever is Windspeaker's Blessing. Now, obviously, the new system does have Pyrexy in it that was spoiled by Riot, which we know adds bonus shields to champions that you heal or buff in some manner. So it's probable that Windspeaker's Blessing is already disappearing, as its effects are somewhat unnoticeable in-game. That being said, I do really like it, and I hope that there is some sort of equivalent to Windspeaker's Blessing in the new rune system, as I do think that enchanters need an option at the very least, preferably more than one option. Next up is the Resolve tree, starting with Stoneborn Pact. Now, this was replacing Bond of Stone recently, and honestly, I'm not a big fan of this. It gives general power with a 5% bonus health. It's really, really hard to notice exactly what it is that it does. I just don't feel like it's iconic enough. I don't feel like it's noticeable enough. It should definitely be removed. It was fun while it lasted. I think it did help tank supports in lane, giving them a different mastery to take, but most of the time tank supports nowadays are taking Courage of the Colossus in general, so Stoneborn Pact probably removed. Grasp of the Undying. Now, I will fully admit I might be biased. I really, really like this mastery, mostly because it plays really well on Juggernauts who need a little bit of additional sustain while they're waiting around in the middle of a fight. The thing about it that I like is it's like a sustain version of Fervor of Battle. It gives you bonus sustain, but only as long as you stay in fight for long periods of time, as opposed to Warlord's Bloodlust. And it also doubles as giving you additional damage. Damage and durability, the two stats Juggernauts like. And honestly, I don't know what else Juggernauts would take. I don't think they can exploit Storm Raider Surge as much, and I don't know if there are going to be any masteries that will particularly favor them in the new system. I would love to see Grasp of the Undying stick around, but I fully will admit that maybe Riot might not take it. So, even though I would like it, maybe not. And finally, we do have Courage of the Colossus, which I actually really, really like this mastery. I think it's excellent for initiation-based tanks, and I do feel like, especially if Stoneborn Pact and Grasp of the Undying are both removed, they'll need something to make them feel somewhat good about what they're doing. So, I would say that Courage of the Colossus should be kept. I think it's gated in lane, but also very strong in team fights. But we'll see, it isn't necessarily a very counter-playable mastery. Things like Fervor and Grasp do have ways of playing around them, even Thunderlords to a degree. Whereas Courage of the Colossus, you land a 5-man taunt, you get a giant shield. And at the same time as well, I know things like Galio, Hero's Entrance, he'll land, get the shield, but before his enemies can even move or attack him, the shield is gone. So it kind of raises questions to me of how useful is this shield in the first place. So I would not be surprised if it was removed, but I would like it to be kept. Anyways, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Go ahead and let me know which keystones you want to keep down in the comment section below. I will also link to Meddler's quick gameplay thoughts post. He does have a poll up in the thread to list what keystone mastery of all of 9 of them you would want to keep if every single one of them had to leave but one. So I'll link that down below so you guys can leave your feedback on Meddler's comment. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like. If you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will talk to you all later.